Some movies are highbrow, some movies are lowbrow.
Here we go. Welcome to the podcast.
Are we recording?
Hell yeah, we are.
Of course we are.
That's why I did that thing.
You do the thing.
I don't know if we'll be able to hear this in the actual cut, but we just played like this stupid theme song that I made that I enjoy greatly.
We are going to play it. Like I said, I do think we need another verse.
Yeah, you can't put that evil on me, man. I'm not a songwriter.
Me neither.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, though.
Welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kirschenbaum.
I'm Cooper Gagan.
Each week, we pick a topic and talk about two movies that fit that topic, one highbrow, one lowbrow. This week, the topic is movies about rock stars.
Yeah, School of Rock versus Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody being on the highbrow side, and the lowbrow side is School of Rock.
Yeah, School of Rock was released in 2003. It is about Dewey, a guitarist in a struggling rock band who has been kicked out of his band and is about to get kicked out of his apartment unless he can pay the rent. In order to do so, he accepts a substitute teacher job at an elementary school under his roommate's name. One day, he hears the students playing music and decides to use them to form a band to compete at the local Battle of the Bands. He is soon found out and kicked out of both the school and his apartment. However, the kids sneak out of school to go to the Battle of the Bands, and Dewey and the kids perform together. They don't win, but are cheered on to perform an encore performance. The originally angry parents are won over by their children's talent, and Dewey goes on to form an after-school program that teaches rock music to kids. School of Rock is directed by Richard Linklater, written by Mike White, and stars Jack Black, the girl with headgear from Pretty in Pink, and a bunch of random-ass kids because it's a Richard Linklater movie, and of course it does. Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 2018. Freddie Mercury is a fabulous baggage handler who joins a rock band. Due to his fabulosity, he becomes super famous. Fuck. All right.
Do you want me to try and do the Bohemian Rhapsody? You're going to go through it.
I'm going to do it.
Are you going to do it?
Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 2018. It's about Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury.
Should we just keep in every time I fuck? We'll probably have to cut out some of them.
We keep it every time.
Every single one. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been recording it every time, baby.
Oh God, it's the runtime.
Just the wet squishes you will hear.
Let's cut all that.
Bohemian Rhapsody was released in. Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 2018. It is about Freddie Mercury. Oh, God damn it. Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 2018. It is about Freddie Mercury, a famous... Fuck! Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 2018. It is about Freddie Mercury, a fabulous baggage handler who joins a rock band. Due to his fabulosity, they become super famous, and Freddie Mercury becomes a dick. Freddie is also in the closet, but not really because he's Freddie Mercury. There is infighting in the band because they are a band, and that always happens, but also because of Freddie's egomania and his manipulative manager. Freddie takes the solo deal and breaks up the band. It turns out he sucks at going solo, and his life is a total fucking mess, so he comes crawling back. He also reveals to them that he has AIDS, which is actually very sad, and I'm not going to do a bit about it. They perform at Live Aid, and the movie shows the entire fucking thing. Bohemian Rhapsody is directed by Bryan Singer. Boo. But he was fired partway through because he fucking sucks, and it was finished by Dexter Fletcher. It was written by Andy McCarten and Peter Morgan and stars Mr. Robot, British Zoe Deutsch, and a bunch of random British people.
That was very nice. That was a journey to get through that. Of course, the one that you have trouble with is Bohemian Rhapsody because that movie is just fucking cursed.
There's nothing there.
That movie is. I'm so excited to talk about this movie because
you are.
I am, and let me tell you why. Because look, we both work in the film industry. We're both aspiring writers. I always kind of worry, like, okay, you don't want to shit on some of these movies too much. You don't know who's going to.
But the beauty is that it's Bryan Singer, so we can shit on as much as we want.
Exactly. There's nothing to be lost by burning a bridge with Bryan Singer, who is, by all accounts, a real piece of shit.
Yeah, like a criminally bad piece of shit.
Right. Even in Hollywood, if we come out with a very strong anti-Bryan Singer take, I think we'll weather that storm.
I think we'll survive. The only people who come after us are Bryan Singer, which is not great because he's quite powerful.
Yeah, he still has a lot of money.
Yeah,
that would be very scary. But I'm excited to shit on this movie. It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
and it's a bummer because Queen fucking rules.
Yeah, I'm a little less hot on Queen. I like their, 5 popular songs, but I never got deep into them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Queen is that they're not like a band that I think means a lot to people in a weird way. I think they're a band
to some people.
I think there's not many Queen songs that really hit people in the heart that strong. I always think of there's a very niche reference. But there's a video of yeah 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 singing Maps,
Mhm.
and every time they cut to the crowd, it was just like sobbing like teenagers and 20-year-olds like screaming the lyrics back.
Yeah.
Like that level of like connection is something that you don't really see with Queen as much, but that might also be because we're several generations past their heyday. Like maybe when they were hitting, it wasn't just the fun of it, it was that other element that the movie seems to think they have.
I think it's also part of it is kind of Freddie Mercury's status as a gay icon.
Yeah, and
makes
just,
them very important to people in a way that's nice.
that's true. That's something I should have counted on more. It's and Freddie Mercury not just a gay, just an icon for anybody who like
Oh, I mean, he's great.
wants to be more interesting and like wants to make life more interesting.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury rules, and I think it's the big failing of Bohemian Rhapsody that like I don't really feel like I know him any better.
Yeah,
than
it makes
before.
me it made me not like Freddie Mercury. Well, this is my problem with the biopic as a thing, is that I feel like my pet example is like Ray. Like
Right.
who remembers Ray?
Ray's movie I actually do like.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it is totally unmemorable other than being like a good performance.
See, that's a point. I do like that point because I think that's the other reason I'm super excited about this movie. Not about this movie. No one's excited about this movie
No.
except I guess the Oscars for all the awards they gave it. But I think for the first three recordings we did, the first three podcasts we did, all the movies were pretty clear with the Highbrow movie was better than the Lowbrow movie. And I think what we have here is a really good example of the way that a highbrow movie is not necessarily good and a lowbrow movie is not necessarily bad.
Yeah, because this movie does like stink of prestige.
Right. It is very much a movie that is trying to be a highbrow for the fancy people movie. Whereas School of Rock is like very much, even to a degree that I was kind of surprised by, very much just a kid's comedy. It's like for children.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about the fact that it is for children. You forget about stuff that's made for children when adults decide to like it, like
Right.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Is a great example of a property made for children to sell toys to children that is then co-opted by a bunch of adult nerds.
It's a good thing we don't have any listeners who else use death threats just saying, well, maybe not. No one hates Star Wars like Star Wars. You're a Star Wars person.
I
too.
love Star Wars deeply.
Yeah.
The other day
You're
in the
allowed
office,
to.
I was rattling off bounty hunters to you, and you were annoyed. This is
I
like
was.
a recurring bit that you just tell me to start naming Star Wars people. And I'll be like, you're like, name a Star Wars character. I'm like, Gonk. You're like, who the fuck is Gonk? Gonk is the droid that looks like a trash can with legs.
Yeah, man, that's more than one of them, but I know which one you mean.
To be fair, yeah, almost all of them look like trash cans with legs.
That's what's kind of fun.
Some of them are trash cans with wheels.
Yeah. Speaking of trash cans, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
But no, like you were saying, something so cool about School of Rock is that it's a kids movie like that's live action.
Mhm.
I feel like they just don't make that anymore. Like when was the last time like a major like there'll be like animated movies obviously.
And there's like Disney things.
right like these straight to Disney Channel. Right now it's to be straight to Disney Plus kind of like the Even Stevens
Yeah.
zone.
I was going to say all of the live action reboots, but those feel like they're kind of for adults who like Disney shit.
Yeah, and they're all like PG-13. They're all like pretty dark and leaning into the darkness. And this was actually just like a Jack Black movie for children that could run on Nickelodeon and probably did run on Nickelodeon all the time.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of like it felt like a little time capsule for like a thing in the industry that just doesn't exist anymore.
God, Jack Black is great. He's
Jack
like
Black.
one of those guys who's just physically very funny. Like he just moves funny.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some people who are just like naturally. We're gonna talk about a movie with Andy Samberg next week.
Oh my God, the way that motherfucker runs. I'll have to save it for the next one.
Yeah, but so me and Jez are watching. He's just another example of a guy. We're watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently, and Andy Samberg, another guy who just kind of like just funny bones.
Yeah.
You know, like just everything about him is just like very great. And like Jack Black has that energy.
Yeah, there's certain people who can just make any individual thing they do funny.
Right.
Like Jack Black can just move in a funny way. He's got his little hoppy dances that he does. Like Jack Black dancing is comedy gold. Have you seen High Fidelity?
I have not.
Okay, he has the one scene where he's singing to "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves, and
sounds
it's
great.
the best
That sounds amazing.
thing ever. It's just great. He just blows in and just has this one little like a spotlight performance, and it's great.
I mean, that's what his kind of zone is. That is like his like that kind of crazy energy, the love of music, the just sort of like the fact he kind of has his own motor. And I feel like what's great about School of Rock is that it's like a great, it's a great first vehicle. Like so many times, like a comedian breaks out, they're kind of edgy, they want to put him in their own vehicle, and it just sort of doesn't quite fit right. And this just seems like the perfect thing for Jack Black.
This is another little point of debate for us. Is this Jack Black's first vehicle? Because is this his breakout?
I would say it's his breakout.
Because Shallow Hal came out was a majorly released movie before this
You're
that
right.
had Jack Black in it.
Yes. Actually, okay.
It wasn't a success.
Right. I mean, like it made money. I think it's one of those sad things where like everyone we know saw Shallow Hal and thought it was really offensive, and then you look
Did
at
we?
the grosses, and then it's like, you know, it made like $500 million domestic or something.
Yeah.
Obviously not that, but I mean, we talked about that, whether or not Shallow Hal was
In retrospect,
offensive.
it's offensive.
Yes.
I
and
can't remember what the reaction was at the time.
I think it was much more of a, ooh, this is in poor taste, I feel bad for laughing, and much less of a,
Let's cancel him and
right,
his career.
Right, exactly.
Because that didn't exist yet, really.
Right, we hadn't reached that innovation yet. But yeah, Jack.
We were still sliding stones on rolling logs to make the pyramids. We didn't have the cart yet.
But yeah, so Jack Black, I guess you're right. I forgot about Shallow Hal, and I guess really like High Fidelity was like where he really like popped.
Yeah. He's in an X-Files episode.
He's in The Cable Guy.
Right?
He's
yeah.
just the friend, as a totally straight man role.
Yeah, I think he pops up in a lot of those.
Mhm.
I don't know where Jack Black came from. I guess Tenacious D.
Yeah, I think he was just sort of like a working actor comedian and
Yeah.
was doing Tenacious D stuff and just started to like hit on these roles.
Yeah, because he was like super like early 20s in the X-Files episode,
Yeah.
or even early. I mean, he might have been in like teens. It's him and Giovanni Ribisi in basically like a like rip off of Powder.
That's fun. Giovanni Ribisi, another those guys who's just in every single thing from like 1993 to like 2004.
And then we lost him to Sneaky Pete.
Oh man, you're right. I forgot about that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the Billions for Giovanni Ribisi. I see ads for Billions now, and I'm just like, what is this show
God damn it.
that we've lost all our great actors to?
Fucking 2 weeks in a row, we got to do our Billions rant. God damn it. Stop going. We lost Damian Lewis to Billions.
We lost,
Giamatti was the big one. That's like the one that hurts.
yeah, it hurts. And then there's also the actress from Mad Men, Rachel.
Oh, damn. She's great. She's on
Yeah.
Billions?
Yeah.
God damn it.
I mean, we did lose her to Sons of Anarchy before that, but then we really lost her to Billions.
Well, I mean, fresh information that you don't have yet. You remember Bob Benson from Mad Men?
Yeah.
Yeah, James Wolk is the actor. We lost him to an NBC show that is very high concept.
Cool.
With
Can't
like
wait.
multiple parallel lives and stuff. And then like the trailer came up like 40 times when I was watching the game today. And the whole time I was like, who the fuck is that guy? And then I was like, oh, it's Bob Benson. And then it's like, oh yeah,
Not Great Bob is one of the best line readings in the history of television.
all time great like GIF. It's not, and maybe the best Mad Men. Well, that or I Don't Think About You at All. I feel like are the two.
It's funny though, because Not Great Bob is a joke that is impossible to tell to somebody without
Sounding insane.
Well, without them like having seen the episode or explaining the entire plot of the episode, it's like impossible to quote that to somebody who doesn't know about it already.
We have to do a Mad Men something. I don't know how.
Yeah, why don't we do? Let's turn this
Do a
podcast
Mad
off
Men
right now and
Let's
just do a Mad Men
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh God, no one. If no one's listening to this, negative people, we will have to listen to other people's podcasts as punishment for recording that podcast.
Yeah, there's so many people I've had tell me that they watched 15 minutes of Mad Men and then could not make it through it.
I mean, we should get back to the rock movies in a second.
Do we have to?
But
do we absolutely have to?
I do, because that's stuff I want to talk about, and the stuff that we got to talk about Rami Malek, who I think is awesome, and I think I want to talk about Mike White and Peter Morgan, and we have not even.
And we need to take down Bryan Singer.
We have not even
piece of shit.
begun. He's out there. The world is counting on us to take him out. Ah, fuck. What was I talking about? Mad Men. I feel like that first wave of, like, peak TV shows of like, obviously Sopranos is like the vanguard, but then you have like.
What's funny? We had a really long. So I watched School of Rock before we knew we were going to record for it with like a bunch of friends, and we were having a very long argument about whether Sopranos or Mad Men is the first Golden Age TV show.
Oh, it's Sopranos. And to be fair, Oz comes first for Sopranos.
Well,
X-Files predates Sopranos, although X-Files obviously is much more of a standard show that's doing
more of a precursor.
Right. I mean, there are shows that were doing interesting things, but I feel like Sopranos was the first blockbuster art show.
Yeah.
And then I think then 2007 Mad Men hits on AMC, and the fact that it's on AMC is a huge deal. And then Breaking Bad and The Wire are all around that time.
Well,
and
yeah,
then
Breaking Bad, Mad Men, The Wire are like the holy trinity of Golden Age TV shows. I guess the argument is whether Sopranos is the first one, like the tip of the spear, or if it's a precursor.
I think, defines your term.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of its own thing, because I think it didn't. I mean, obviously it affected those shows, and I think it's totally brilliant. It just didn't have like the cultural moment that seemed to like unravel TV like those other three did. I think really it was like Sopranos led to those three, and those three led to everything else.
So that was our friend Kelsey's argument, was that because it's not actually part of the golden age because it wasn't part of that like sea change.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I mean it's like arguing about when generations start. It's like a transition.
Yeah.
But that's not what this podcast is about.
No, it's not. Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that I worry that like some of those shows are being forgotten a little bit because there's so much TV now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like people don't like Mad Men obviously exists because it's a deal, but I don't know how many people watch it anymore. I worry about that a little bit about Breaking Bad as well, although Better Call Saul is probably helping keep that torch alive. And The Wire, honestly, I
think people kind of turn on The Wire.
But because now like TV, even peak TV is very much needs to grab you quickly, which is not a denigration of like a lot of the really good shows that are now. It's just more the landscape. You have to do that.
Yeah.
And The Wire, the whole thing on The Wire is you don't know what's happening for like 3 episodes. It does not do a here's the world pilot. It's just you're there.
Yeah. Well, The Wire is quite slow.
Yeah.
I would say I think Breaking Bad in theory has the greatest staying power of those because it is the most like on its face fun of those shows.
Yeah, and that pilot is just like a real like crackerjack pilot.
Yeah. I mean, that opening scene.
Yeah. I mean, let's table this for now, but let's like agree we should pick a movie with some of the actors from those shows so we can like segue in some like.
Can we just do a podcast where we just find actors? Is my favorite game, which is Spot the Mad Men actor.
It'll be a Patreon series.
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody and School of Rock. School of Rock is a movie people really, really ride for.
Yeah. In a way that I'm not 100% on board with. I think it's very solid.
Right. I saw you gave it the 4 stars on Letterboxd, which
it's good.
Is good. I really liked it. I think for me it was a little too built up. I know people who think it's like Richard Linklater's like top 3 movie of his. Yeah. Which is I think a really crazy take given how many amazing movies Richard Linklater has made.
That's pretty wild. I'd say it's a wheel, which is our favorite term for when something is just successful at being what it's supposed to be. Yeah. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just a wheel.
A wheel works great. It moves things.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's what's so good about School of Rock. And I think that's it's what makes it lowbrow. But again, lowbrow, not an insult. Yeah. Is that it's very much, it's doing a formula. It's doing these certain genre trappings. It's telling a pretty straightforward story in some pretty goofy ways.
It's also a pretty feel-good movie.
Right. It makes some cells that are not like, like, do I believe all these shitty parents would immediately like be okay with their kids joining a band? Do I believe, yada, yada. Like, but that's not, you don't have to believe that because that's not what this movie wants you to do.
Yeah. And it's not like delving into the human condition. It's just like making a bunch of kids feel better about themselves and then having a big show at the end, which is nice.
And I think it's making some very good points about rock music and being a rock star. And I think that's sort of, I'm not saying it's like this,
about how it's like, about how in like the sticking it to the man way and like the what way. Cause
in kind of, cause so Bohemian Rhapsody, I think wants to tell that story, right? It wants to be about being a rock star. It wants to be about like, this is Freddie Mercury, the rock star on rock stars. I think there's scenes of it that kind of flirt with doing that in a good way, but ultimately I'm not sure what it's saying. Whereas in School of Rock, it seems to generally want to tell the story about this guy who's like, in the beginning, he's so insistent on like, being a rock star means you gotta like be a degenerate and drink all night and be metal and be like difficult. And then like by the end of the movie, it's really more like, no, being a rock star means like, it doesn't always mean getting an A. I think that's the line. It just means like, it's good for you. You don't even have to be good at it. It's just about rocking out and feeling good with your friends.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really, it's very adorable. And I like adorable, heartwarming things.
And also kind of that like just being comfortable in yourself and being happy can be an act of rebellion in a way.
Right. I mean, I think one of my notes I have is that like maybe they're not going to be rock stars, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't rock out. Like I think the movie is not trying to say these kids should stop going to school. It just means that it's just trying to say that you should make time in your life to do stuff like this. You should make time in your life to make art, even if you're not going to be an artist.
Yeah. There's kind of like a interesting meta example of that happening in that all of those, because it's a Richard Linklater movie, none of the kids are actors, and most of them did not become actors.
No, I mean, there's Miranda Cosgrove, who's iCarly.
Right.
But I think all the other kids, some of them, Jess's girlfriend looked it up. And
one of them was like a phlebotomist.
Yeah, 2 of them are dating.
Cool.
They're married. And also, they're 40 now because we're old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Sorry. The point you were making, they're non-actors, they're kids.
Well, it's just that like life imitated art in that like these kids were just movie stars for one moment and that was fun. They had a good time and then they didn't have to go on to have crazy careers. They were just in a movie. That's probably a nice memory for them.
Right. And I think that's a really good message. I mean, I know it's a kid's movie. It's I don't know, realistic, doesn't matter. Like I think it's still very fun. And weirdly, Bohemian Rhapsody almost tries to do the same thing. Because it does the one of the 14 plots in Bohemian Rhapsody is, Freddie gets disconnected from his friends, the band, the rest of Queen.
By his like predatory manager.
Right.
Which was a character I found extremely frustrating.
Paul was the character, yeah. He gets isolated from them and he starts to think he's like the only person who can do this music and it's all about him. And, he makes the connection with them at the end of the movie where it's like, oh, they just need to jam out. And like, it's about just playing music with your friends. And I think that plot worked way better in Pop Star, but Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Yeah. And also, I mean, he made an interesting point, which is the thing you see a lot in art, which is that he needed them as a restraint. He needed his people who could talk back to him instead of like the studio band that would just do whatever he said, which would just end up a mess.
Right.
It's like George Lucas making the prequels. He needed his wife, who's his editor, right?
Yeah, that's the fan theory that like George Lucas's ex-wife was like the check on him on his worst ideas, which is why the first Star Wars movies work so well. And later on, he didn't have that check.
Yeah. But that's like an easy point to make. Like,
right. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, there was movies has, especially a movie like Star Wars, has had 1 million people like working on it. It's not just, I mean, who knows?
Well, that I also meant it's an easy point to make in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
it's not like a revelation that, like, oh man, like rock stars need like their band to like need people to tell them when they're doing too much.
That's true. Although I will say that you can make an old point and still have it resonate.
Yeah, it was a nice moment.
It was, but I fucking love movies about friends. This is like my whole thing. Like,
yeah.
I love that. That's like the kind of shit that hits me really hard. And this movie, I think my issue with it was that it needed either more Queen, like the other three, or less Queen.
Well, that's funny because famously the band was pitching more Queen.
Right. So two.
Maybe their version of the movie was better.
Yeah. So two. These are unconfirmed, just like things I've read about the movie. I do not know if these are true. The rumors are the reason this movie took so long to make is that Queen, the surviving members of Queen, wanted it to be more about them after Freddie's death. I don't know how true that is, but the other thing that was a rumor was that there was in their contract to make the movie, they needed to be on screen for at least 50% of like the screen time of the film, and that's why they're in this movie a lot. But I think the movie wants to be all about Freddie, but it pushed them in the movie enough so that they're a presence, but not enough so that they actually like feel like characters,
Yeah.
I wanted, like, Brian May is a really interesting person. He's a rocket scientist who made some of the most iconic guitar riffs ever. Like, what's his deal? He does a little the boom boom clap in when they do We Will Rock You, and that's kind of his only thing. I wanted, if he matters so much to Freddie, if that's the emotional side of the movie, have scenes of them just jamming out. Like, that's what School of Rock does. There's the scenes where they're just jamming out in School of Rock are so good.
I mean, it was a fun part of Bohemian Rhapsody when they make Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Although they had the stupid line where it's like, maybe we should get more experimental. But then it is fun to see them being experimental.
Exactly. Like, I almost wanted the movie to be more arch
that
and
was
be more
like,
silly.
That was like me in the top half of the movie. I was like, you know what? This movie doesn't seem like it's great, but it's fun to watch a band be a band.
Yeah.
Bands are cool.
Yes.
And that's carrying it really far.
Right. I mean, the fact that Queen songs are really, really get you amped up and we like Queen. The fact that bands are cool and friends are cool, like, it does doing a lot of the work on this movie that is
that's
maybe
the
not doing the
tagline.
work.
Bands are cool and friends are cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
That should be the tagline of School of Rock, certainly.
Yeah. Although they're not really friends. It's more of a teacher and students.
True. I mean, I guess like the kids we don't really know about the interpersonal relationships of just the kids.
Yeah. They're just shitheads to each other.
I do like School of Rock a lot. I do think Richard Linklater is such an interesting and bizarre filmmaker.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his whole thing with using non-actors all the time, and he's, like, very good at directing them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, was Boyhood non-actor? Like, was the boy not a non-actor?
Yeah, boy was a non-actor, and then his daughter played the sister, and then obviously Patricia Arquette was an actor.
Well, yeah.
And Ethan Hawke, but then most of the other actors were either non-actors or just local actors to, like, Austin.
Yeah.
Like stage actors in Austin or just people who worked in that, like, in film stuff in that area.
Yeah, and then he does not what's the high school movie of his?
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Is that also a lot? No, that's mostly actors, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. The big one. So my understanding, Linklater came out of Austin. His Slacker was his big breakout.
Right.
Which was that I think if I recall correct, the concept is that it's like a conversation that like people are talking and then someone passes by and you follow their conversation and it's just sort of experimental flowy like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of, yeah, that very naturalistic kind of here's just a slice of life thing, like feels like that's his like thing, his message, but he just jumps around genres so much.
Yeah. And then have you seen Everybody Wants Some?
I haven't.
Everybody Wants Some is kind of interesting in that it is both a wheel and not a wheel, in that it is like it's a wheel in that it's like not doing anything especially ambitious, but it's not a wheel in that it has no plot, nothing happens, and it's just like hanging out. It's interesting.
Is that highbrow or lowbrow?
It's kind of like both. It is kind of this podcast.
That's Richard Linklater, right? Like that's his thing, is that like he will make a remake of the Bad News Bears. And he will do a movie that took 12 years to film, and it's just the story of a boy aging. Like,
yeah, I mean, Boyhood is pretty. Like, I think people had kind of mixed takes on it when it came out, but it's a pretty remarkable production achievement.
Yes, I mean that movie really worked for me. I know there's some people who it hasn't worked for.
I also enjoy like the scene where they're having dinner and the dad is drunk, and you're like, it's just so tense because you know he's gonna blow up, because like that's just what it's like being around somebody like that.
Yeah,
it's like the most anxiety I've felt in a movie, and I feel like I really rate highly a movie's ability to make you feel something strongly, and that is like one of the most anxious I've felt in a movie, and I really value that of that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean that's so brilliant, and I think if he brings some of that to School of Rock, and School of Rock I think is not the film of his you feel his voice the most.
I didn't know it was the Linklater movie going into it.
Right. I mean, it's written by Mike White, who's since become a director himself, and we can talk about it in a second. But it's definitely one that feels like Linklater is doing the assignment. I mean, the scenes of them just rocking out together and playing songs together, that does have that kind of loose improv energy that Linklater likes to do. But mostly it just feels like he's just willing to like tell the story, not reinvent the wheel. Like that's the lowbrow move, but I think it's like the right take.
Yeah, and certainly. Like I love directors and writers and actors who are like kind of just craftsmen like that, where it's like they can do the artsy fartsy shit, but they can also just make a movie when it's a job, because it is a job. Like,
yeah, I mean, well, we talked about Ridley Scott in episode 1, and he's like a more extreme version of that. I feel like he's also willing to just do the assignment and tell the story, not always reinvent, although he will reinvent the wheel if that's what the script calls for. You know? Interesting. I wouldn't have made that connection between Ridley Scott and Richard Linklater immediately, but here we are. Do you want to talk Mike White, or do we want to talk shit on Bryan Singer a little bit more?
You can talk about Mike White. Can't wait to scream about how much I hate Bryan Singer.
Okay, let's move to Bohemian Rhapsody because Bryan Singer fucking sucks and was fired from this movie because he didn't show up to set.
Fuck that motherfucker. Also, Bryan Singer just fucking sucks for like, I don't know, maybe we can't get into it for like actual legal reasons, but like he is a huge piece of shit. Look it up online.
Yeah, deeply evil man. There's a reason he even if he was a much better filmmaker, the industry's better off that he does not exist.
Yeah, it's like the biggest open secret in Hollywood that he's like a total piece of shit.
Yeah.
And like it's wild that it hasn't caught up to him yet.
Right. And how this affects us now is we get to shit on a movie mostly unabashedly.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be nice to the actors who I actually do think are doing a pretty good job in this movie.
Yeah.
And considering all the stuff behind the scenes, like it's making this movie exist.
I also say, like, you and I, we're not like industry insiders. Like we have worked in the industry for a long time, but like we're at a very low level. And even we are aware of the open secret of how shitty Bryan Singer is. That's how shitty he is.
So Bryan Singer gets fired. He gets replaced by Dexter Fletcher, I believe was his AD. And Dexter Fletcher finishes the movie, goes on to direct Rocket Man, which I think most people really like. Knowing that this movie had all this weird behind the scenes stuff, is it even possible to like approach this movie as like, do you ever see the show
as a work of an auteur, like
as anything? I mean, have you seen the show Cutthroat Kitchen on?
I know of it. Yes.
Right. So the idea is the chefs get all these sabotages making a dish, and then the judge, when they get the dish, they have to just say they say, "I'm not allowed to take into account what happened to you." Like I just have to imagine that you conjured this for me as exactly as you wanted it this way, not knowing that they had to cook with like a fucking bucket on their head and getting whacked in the shins with, I don't know, sticks. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. Can you do this with this movie?
Wow. Well, this gets into my favorite pet argument, which is about the death of the artist. I like the theory by Roland Barthes, which is essentially that a work of art exists on its own as like a separate entity from the artist, and that it should be judged on its own merits, and that is basically like it just exists as a thing that you can criticize. You don't have to. It doesn't belong to the author anymore. And in the same way that it doesn't belong to the author anymore with an auteur, in that like if it just a bunch of crazy bullshit happened on set, it's still a bad movie. You can still say it's a shitty movie. It doesn't get a free pass because they had a tough time.
Right. You don't want to like do the work for what the artist like could or couldn't do. Because part of what I feel like was a lot of the response, at least the industry to the movie, why I think it was well loved in the film industry, was that they kind of saw it as the success story of people who just like were boned by this bad director who, also is a human piece of shit, and like pulled it together to make something.
Great. And we can like that.
That is good.
But I don't have to give it 4 stars on Letterboxd because of that.
No, and I agree with that. And I think, I don't know, my trouble with this movie was I kept trying to like see the seams. I kept trying to be like, oh, that's probably what happened there. Oh, it's probably like, there's a scene where, and this scene like went viral a little bit for bad editing. I'm using quote marks now, not my take, but it's the scene where they meet the manager, where Queen meets their manager, the Aiden, fucking Littlefinger.
Aiden Gillian, yeah.
Yeah. And the scene is cut in this way that like they're sitting there and this guy walks up behind them and facing away and you don't quite see him yet. And then they're talking and then he like reveals he's there and he sits down.
Oh, yeah. They're at dinner at the outdoor restaurant.
Yes. And I think what that scene is trying to do is like, oh, they got embarrassed that this guy was there because they were saying something kind of embarrassing about themselves. But oh, he's the guy.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cut together in such a way and like paced in such a way that none of that comes through and it just comes a little awkward. And I wonder how much of that is just that like was that one of the Bryan Singer scenes that he just like shot half of and went home? Like did they just not have the footage for that? Or does it matter at all? Or do I just say, like, man, that movie just really didn't nail that scene at all?
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because, like, yeah, sure, like if you don't have all the shit from the script, you can't put it together in a movie. But even on like the bare bones level, this movie doesn't feel like it has much to say.
Yeah, it's
just a very straight biopic, which is that look at this amazing guy. He came from nothing, then he had everything, and then he lost it, and then he kind of got it back again.
Yeah, and if there's anybody who deserved a more interesting biopic, it's Freddie Mercury.
Weirdly, I feel like, I mean, okay, again, disclaimer, I shouldn't do the thing where this is saying this is the better version of the movie. But in a weird way, I think the better version of the movie is what the band Queen pitched, which is a movie about them, and then halfway through they lose Freddie Mercury. That's like the midpoint of the movie, and then it's like, what the fuck do we do as a band without Freddie Mercury? Yeah. That's a movie that I find interesting, and that has something to say about what it means to be musicians and what it means to be a band.
Mm-hmm. And what Freddie Mercury meant to everyone.
And like, yeah, you could see what Freddie Mercury added through his absence.
Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of thing that like, I mean, it's funny when I was younger and I heard the story about that's what Queen's pitch was. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then having seen Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm like, well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it will happen one day. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a very frustrating movie. I think it's kind of fun. It's very funny. Well, like I stopped taking notes partway through because I'm like, look, there's so much here I can just like attack. But I'm like, look, maybe if I just see it scene to scene, it'll be kind of fun. And it is kind of like amusing. Like, yeah, Mike Myers shows up for no reason and just fucking rules.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could talk about like things we like about Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, like
we could.
Yeah, like I don't know, like the first half of the movie, like it's fun to see a band on the up and up. Like that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury coming in, being super fabulous, very fun.
Yeah.
Like, and then like him being like, oh, we'll just sell the van. Like that's fun. Like all that shit is great.
Yeah. And I think Rami's good. I think he's
a good actor.
He's fantastic.
Do people like Rami Malek right now? I feel like there was like a little bit of like backlash against him, but I can't remember why.
I think there was backlash to him because of the movie. I think there was this thing of Bohemian Rhapsody became the Oscar villain, and him winning awards for it became the,
was it like an identity politics thing about him being straight?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, maybe, but if there was, that's not something that I got to. I mean, it's very
I don't remember that, so maybe not.
It seemed like the backlash was more that they thought the movie was bad.
Which it is.
Right. And they didn't like that he was getting awarded for the movie. And I can't remember who else was around that year for Best Actor. So Rami Malek plays Freddie Mercury, wins Best Actor for this movie at the Oscars. I remember Bradley Cooper was nominated for Star is Born that year, which is a performance I like a lot. I don't remember who else that was 2018. That was kind of a weird year.
Yeah.
That was Green Book year.
Yeah. I will say also biopics are always like a weird test of acting ability because like there's kind of the interplay or there's the seesaw between like doing a perfect impression and doing a good acting job.
Yeah.
And then there's always the naysayers who are like, that's not a good impression of that person.
Right. And you can do either one. I mean, you can do like, it's an impersonate. I feel like The Crown is a show that does really toes this line really well. They put a lot of effort into making the characters look as much like the real people as possible.
Yeah.
They'll do prosthetics, they'll do voice stuff. But they also cast like really fucking good actors. Like it's not just the faces,
Yeah.
No, Rami's good in this movie. And
Yeah.
he's fucking great in Mr. Robot and he's kind of awesome in everything. And he's great in Night at the Museum. Which is
who does he play?
He's the like the Egyptian pharaoh whose like tablet brings everything to life.
Cool. He is Egyptian, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fun.
Yeah, we like Rami.
We like Rami. We don't like
He's
this
such
movie.
a weird looking guy.
I know,
but he's so like much like Freddie Mercury, but kind of handsome still.
Yeah, he's got like a very like lovable energy. Like maybe just from watching Mr. Robot, every time I see Rami Malek, I just want to give him a hug. And just like let him know things are okay, and I will protect him from the world.
Same with Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
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 His relationship with Lucy Boynton. Wait, is Lucy Boynton the actress?
Yes,
or the
Lucy
person?
Boynton's the actress. Mary is the.
I really thought she was Zoe Deutsch for 50% of the movie.
She doesn't look as much like Lucy Boynton in this movie. She doesn't. I think they're giving her a lot of like makeup to make her look a little more like this Mary person.
Yeah.
Lucy Boynton's great. You ever see Sing Street?
Uh-uh.
Sing Street, very good movie.
Is she a singer?
No, so it's a movie about a bunch of kids at like a Catholic boarding school who start a band together in the 80s. It actually would be a very good.
We should have done that with School Rock.
Yeah, actually, that would have been really good. It's
Fuck.
just that no one has seen Sing Street, even though it is one of my all-time favorite movies. At the end of this podcast, I will recommend it as a thing to watch, even though I'm recommending it now.
Spoil it now, Josh.
Well, now I won't.
Now you got to think of something else.
Well, now I will. Sing Street fucking rules. I love that movie so much. Lucy Boynton plays a model who like a teenager who like lives nearby, and the kid just sees this girl and tries to hit on her, and she's like, "No, I wouldn't hang out with you unless you're like in a band or something." So he's like, "Oh, I do have a band." And then like he leaves that conversation. He's like, "I gotta start a fucking band." And he like talks to his older brother. He's like, "How do I start a band?" He's like, "Well, you need friends." He's like, "I got friends."
That's really funny.
It's such a good movie.
That's
I
great.
love it so much. But very similar to School of Rock in that it gets all about like just what it means to like just make art with your friends.
Yeah. Oh, I will say, okay, so there's like some kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody also has like kind of like the nakedly like feel good or like it's like the easy moments, like the whole lamp business in their houses, and then later on you have the scene where he like turns the lamp on and she's not there, and it's like it's one of those things that like it works, but it's also just like the easiest way to do that.
Right. The movie doesn't. It has that stuff, and it is doing the work to like make you feel for Freddie, but I just don't know what Freddie wants. Like opening the movie, he's a baggage handler. He's a little flamboyant. He sings his way onto Queen. What is the thing in his life that he doesn't have? Like what? He seems like he opens the movie and he's like, "I'm not famous, but I fucking rule."
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he's like, "Now I'm famous and I rule."
Yeah. Although I mean, a lot of it's kind of dancing around him being in the closet.
Yeah. Do you think maybe that was at one point was the story and it kind of got pulled back? It feels like that would have been.
I don't want to speculate.
It's the Cutthroat Kitchen again.
I have no idea. I have no idea how to speculate about that. I remember there was a lot of people kind of wringing their hands about how much his sexuality would play into the movie, and then people were mostly. I mean, it does address it.
Yeah.
And I think people were mostly satisfied with that.
Yeah, I think it is this weird thing where I think there were so many complaints of the movie overall that like if there were complaints about how it treated Freddie's sexuality, like it was lost in the shuffle of, all the other stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, then again, like if like the moral or if like the theme of the movie was that him being in the closet like ruined his life,
But it didn't really.
It didn't, and I don't love that as a take either.
No.
So like, I don't know if that wouldn't help it.
Well, so
It's like too bad that he had to be in the closet. Like that's a bad thing that we shouldn't have done as a society.
right, and it's not super clear how much in the closet he was or when he came out or what. It doesn't
Felt
really
like one of those open secret deals.
right, but no one really.
Much like how much of a piece of shit Bryan Singer is.
Yes, but so the end of this movie, he's being controlled by this shitty manager named Paul.
Yeah,
and then
is that a real guy?
I don't know. I saw this movie and like anytime you see a biopic, you're like, well, maybe some of this is real, but I get that this may just be the gist of it. And I watched
or
this
maybe
movie.
this is like 5 guys who are in one character.
Right. And I watched Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm just like, I don't know if any of this shit happened. Like the only thing I would believe happened is that one guy, they told
Live
that
Aid
one.
happened. We know that.
Live Aid did happen.
video of
Yeah.
that.
Okay. There was a lot of video of that. I know Freddie Mercury was a man. I know they wrote all those songs. I know they probably left that one guy who was like, I want to do this other song. And then he's like, get fucked, Mike Myers, and then they leave.
Yeah.
Which is seen actually like a lot.
I don't even remember that scene.
Where Mike Myers?
No, he's in this movie?
Yes. He's so funny. There's the scene in the movie where they record Bohemian Rhapsody and then they go to the owner of their label and they're like, we want to do Bohemian Rhapsody. And he's like, it's too long.
Oh, wait, that's Mike Myers?
That's Mike Myers.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? God.
I'm typing. I'm clickety clackety.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes, it
No.
yes it is. Yes,
No.
it is. It is Mike Myers in prosthetics.
What?
He's so funny. And I'm so happy to see
That's
him
Mike
back.
Myers?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. What?
Oh, I'm so happy I got to see this. Just the unbridled joy in your face is lovely.
Oh, my God. That is a good... Oh, Mike.
He came back.
Mike, you're back.
He came back from
We
Bohemian.
missed you.
Of all things, he came back
Oh.
from Bohemian Rhapsody.
Thank God.
It seems so
the
funny,
love
right?
guru did you dirty, my guy.
It's so weird when he pops up in, right?
Yeah.
He goes into hiding after Love Guru,
He's
comes
in, like,
back
Inglorious Bastards.
for one scene.
Yeah.
And this, doing kind of good character work. Like,
yeah, I mean,
so
that was
good.
a fun scene.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. The bit where he just like, it's so like hacky, but it's like so fun. Is that
Yeah.
whole like,
That's
I
all.
like
That's all. The
formulas.
first half is that it's hacky, but it's fun because like bands are fun. I
Right.
don't know. Like,
And then it becomes, it started, the first half of the movie feels just like messy about the band. And then the second half is messy about Doug and Freddie.
I don't know, Freddie parties too much. Like,
Yeah. And I guess that's a problem because, eventually you shouldn't party too much, but like, it seems like a movie, it wants to be about his friends and it's like kind of not, and it kind of is.
yeah.
And then the last like, and this is the thing that really clicked about what weirds me out about this movie. The last like 10 minutes or the 10 minutes before the Live Aid scene
yeah.
is just like 10 minutes straight of payoffs for like, he gets rid of Paul. He goes and finds Jim, this guy who he was nice to him once.
Right. The gym thing kind of confused me because it was like one little setup scene and he's been looking for him for so long. And he finds him and he brings him. Maybe that happened. I don't know.
Right. So there's that payoff. He goes to the band. He's like, okay, we're going to do it. Then he goes to like, it's just like it's like a montage of just like, here's the 7 plot threads that are technically in this movie. And now they will all pay off. I also want to make the point that coming out to your parents on your way to perform at Live Aid is fucking insane. It is like such a wild move.
Yeah.
Like you're in the limo and you're like, I am going to go to Live Aid for the reunion for Queen. Hold on. Let me pop into my parents and reveal that I'm gay real quick.
Yeah. If that's true, big respect.
Yeah. Like absolutely a power move that I feel like the movie really should have
Most
appreciated.
people like try to like, meditate, hang out,
It seems
calm
like
down.
It seems like a deeply personal, difficult situation for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
like Freddie's just like, oh, hold on, I got to be at Live Aid.
It's like, okay, I have a job interview. Let me whack my balls with a claw hammer real quick.
And it's like that scene, like it should have been really sweet, but instead I'm like, you're doing this on the way to Live Aid. You're on set.
There's
soon.
only 10 minutes left in the
What
movie,
are you
baby.
doing? Oh my god, I do like the Live Aid scenes. Though.
I skipped through it.
I know. I
I
like.
put it on fast forward like whatever 2 times, and I just kind of like did a crossword for that because I was like, I've seen videos of Live Aid. I don't need to see this.
I think it's good. I think it's well filmed. I like the song. They let me
Live Aid was a great performance by the actual band Queen. I don't need to see Mr. Robot hipping and hopping around on stage doing make pretend.
I enjoyed watching Mr. Robot hippity hop around the stage, make pretend. I mean, what else? What is acting if not hopping around a stage?
Yeah, but it's just like a 1-for-1 recreation of a better thing that exists. Like, why are we doing this?
I mean, so the movie First Man about like the going into the moon. They do.
We
that.
did that?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Not me and you.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But they recreate a lot of the stuff that movie does is just like recreations of actual footage from the cameras that were on those spaceships.
Yeah.
That you can actually like look up. But it's still cool.
Yeah.
Still looks good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the. I guess it's a good move in the movie because they sucked at making up their own stuff that happened.
It's a bold choice, certainly, to just be like, we are going to just do the entire Live Aid performance. Even though this movie is finished as a like from the story perspective.
My other thing is that the movie is about 20 minutes too long, and that sequence is 20 minutes long.
I would cut other stuff. I would
cut everything except for that.
You could cut 20 random minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, it should just be a 20-minute like recreation of Live Aid and air on Crackle.
Which exists.
Did it ever?
I don't know. I remember
we should really pull in the reins before we start shitting on Crackle. This might be the only network we're able to sell a show to.
Oh, that's true. Oh no. Oh, and Sony as a corporation makes very good products that I like. I'm trying to pull it back.
Their headphones are good.
They are. Are these Sonys?
No, those are Sennheisers. Those are better.
Okay. My TV is a Sony. That's true.
Great.
I'm not just
we
trying to
love
knock it
you,
back.
Sony.
Oh man, we met. Whatever the first podcast do cast like reads for like Sony. Like everyone else is doing Quip.
Yeah.
And HelloFresh.
Yeah.
And Stamps.com.
Like, Sony. The Sony Corporation has brought you this piece of audio entertainment.
And then it's just like an hour-long ad read listing out all the things that Sony does because they're a massive multinational.
Yeah.
It's like, do you like video games? Do you like movies?
Japanese
do you like
tractors.
Yeah. Your household appliances. Use the code Highbrow Lowbrow.
Yeah.
Get 20% off your tractor. Yeah, I don't know. School of Rock. What do you think?
Oh yeah, good movie.
Better movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, Bohemian Rhapsody is trying to do all this stuff and trying to do this thing, but it ends up kind of being trapped by the highbrow stuff and maybe kind of flaming out. Whereas School of Rock is, let's just tell a fun story.
Yeah.
And it does it really well, and I think it more affecting certainly.
Yeah, it has more to say by swinging less wide.
I think more precisely, if I can make a weird distinction, like
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that lowbrow movies can do really well is that they can really focus on by not shooting for the fences.
They don't have the burden.
Exactly. They can just tell like a very focused story really well and really effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if a highbrow movie like this especially is trying to do so much, trying to be like, this is the story of this man who meant so much to us, it ends up not saying anything.
Yeah, it's an almost impossible target to hit because it's just like, it's like it's the same thing with like bands having their second album where there's like, oh, this album has to be so good, it has to beat our first one, and it like almost never does because that's an impossible like thing to hit.
Yeah.
So it's like telling the story of Freddie Mercury, a person who's very important to a lot of people. If you're trying to tell the entirety of the story of Freddie Mercury, you're going to fail, which is why I think there's like the school of making a biopic, whereas you kind of pick a moment and you do it about the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's often more successful.
Yeah. And I think what Tarantino has to think about that, where he complains about biopics and he says like, you shouldn't make a movie about Elvis's life, make a movie about the one day before he stepped into the recording studio to record his first album or something like that. I don't mind the big stuff, the whole story of a man's life, but I think you kind of have to. It's a tall task.
I'd say my problem with it is that real life doesn't follow good story structure. Like people's lives don't have arcs to them. The world is random and shitty and sometimes good, but not in the right order. And so like a person's life isn't going to make a good movie. Yeah, in that way.
I think they can. I mean, if you can focus them in a kind of way, like this is an insane pick, but Lawrence of Arabia is a movie that is the story of a man's life.
Yeah.
Although admittedly more focused on just the stuff he did in Arabia.
It also helps that it's 7 hours long, so they have more time to do it.
Well, that was my next point, actually. I was going to say the movie rules.
Great.
Very good movie, and so that's the whole thing. But that movie, the opening of the movie is like, who was this man? Like there are characters saying like, could we ever really know who this is? And we kind of like reckons with that. Whereas like Bohemian Rhapsody is like, hey everybody, this is who Freddie Mercury was. And then 2.5 hours later, I think we're both thinking, who?
Yeah. Well, because, I don't know, they took a guy who's so interesting and charismatic and they made him very generic. Like, I don't know, like in the little like read I did at the beginning where I was talking about the story, it's like, oh yeah, there's friction in the band because there's always friction in a band. Like, it is like taking a story that's specific and making it feel very generic.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, that's what's so disappointing about it. I think especially because like it feels like Freddie meant so much to people, like Queen so much to people, and like I don't know, like there's no moment in Bohemian Rhapsody where I like teared up like I did in School of Rock when like the kid is playing at the end, and like his dad is like proud to see him. Like that's so good. Mm-hmm. Like that's the character has maybe been on screen, like he's maybe had like 6 minutes of like focused screen time. Like that kid, like he's been doing stuff like this. Maybe it was like one scene he talks with Jack Black. There's one scene where his dad's kind of a dick, and it just pays off, Yeah. And that shit rules. Like that's what like lowbrow movies can do really well, especially when they're really clicking. Whereas like where highbrow movies I think can not.
Yeah, because just trying to show that sometimes you can like impress your parents and relate to them for like a moment and have like a nice moment. Sometimes you don't win, but you have a nice moment and it changes your life, and that's good. Versus like you have to become a rock star icon, and I don't know.
Right. It's that it's really there's the scene in Bohemian Rhapsody where like Aidan Gillen asks them, what does Queen mean? Like, what is your band? And Freddie says like, we play for the freaks in the back who has no one else to sing to them. And like, one, I don't know if that's necessarily Queen's space. I mean, maybe. I think there's, I don't know. I think there's other people who like did that.
I feel like maybe they backed into that.
Yeah. I think maybe culture like found them there.
Yeah.
But also like that's what fucking School of Rock is doing.
Well, yeah.
That's actually what that movie is doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is like about how, yeah, I guess it's like about rock music being a personal thing versus an external thing, and about how like, because in the beginning you're showing, I mean, doesn't he also say it's like they're like a family?
Right.
That's also part of his pitch, and then by the end of it, in retrospect, that scene just feels like some ad copy that Freddie Mercury came up with to sell a manager on, to sell like a studio.
Right.
A&R guy on him. Like,
if you're telling that story, if that's what Queen means, then tell the story about how Freddie felt like he didn't have a family, and Queen like that was that for him.
Yeah.
Or about how like performing makes him feel seen. Or tell a story, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a shame because the movie's, like I said, it's kind of fun. It's got Mike Myers.
Yeah. As I've just found out. Yeah, it's such a cheat code that it's just like, bands are so cool. Like, it's cool to watch bands make music, and especially because they're Queen songs, so they're good. Like,
yeah.
Although I don't like Bohemian Rhapsody, the song. I don't think that's a good song.
That's a hot take. I think that song fucking rules.
I think it's a lot of garbage. I think it's just a bunch of shit. like the take that Mike Myers has is my take on Bohemian Rhapsody.
I guess it's okay for you to shit on Queen, right? We can talk about music we don't like.
I mean, We Will Rock You is like, whatever, a minute long nothing of a song. I think I don't like Queen, Josh.
I think We Will Rock You is just like a stadium song.
It's great.
It's
also like not a song.
It's not. Yeah, it's an anthem, and that's fine. But like Somebody to Love rules. Fucking Bicycle Race.
Another
like
One Bites the Dust is great.
Yeah, Fat Bottom Girls a lot of fun.
Fat Bottom Girls is very good. I love that song. I know. Okay, there's a lot of Queen songs that like the two very famous ones. I'm like, whatever.
Don't Stop Me Now is great.
Yeah.
You're My Best Friend is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Bohemian Rhapsody. I know you don't, but it's great.
It's fucking.
The Show Must Go On is great, but mostly because they use it in that scene in Moulin Rouge, which fucking rules so hard.
Should we just talk about how much we love Moulin Rouge real
quick? We
quick?
need to talk about Moulin Rouge on this podcast. Not this moment in this podcast, but like we need to do an
musicals.
I mean, that would be highbrow.
Low. It's got a bunch of pop songs. It's got a bunch of needle drops.
It's super artsy though. It's super duper artsy for artsy. What is Boz?
What is Boz?
What is Boz? I adore that movie so much. I think if there's
What is Boz? Baby, don't hurt me.
If there's one movie that's like really about just like how art is insane and loud and flamboyant, and that's what makes it special, it's Moulin Rouge. That
honestly,
is great.
There's like I'm realizing there's like a certain subset of movies that in and of themselves could be highbrow / low, their own episode, and that it just figure out, is this high or lowbrow? There's like Forrest Gump, now Moulin Rouge. There's like, we should just have a subset of episodes that are just like debating whether this movie is highbrow or
in this
lowbrow.
very special episode.
Yeah,
the Moulin Rouge debate.
Yeah,
it's that, or we just paired up with
the Moulin Rouge problem.
The Moulin Rouge problem. That's great. Moulin Rouge is great. We should talk
it's
about
a wonderful movie.
Yes.
I always, whenever people say we're going back somewhere, I always think we're going back to the Moulin Rouge, and they're like, flying through like the windmill and everything.
Yeah, and it's like just the crazy like clearly CGI, but done in such a way that you're like, ooh, this is kind of nice.
I know. That's like one of those things where like it's a thing I quote all the time that nobody knows what it's from, and it's kind of hard to explain what it is from. So it's just like I sound like I'm just saying nonsense all the time.
Man, we can't go off on Moulin Rouge. We'll be here all fucking day.
Okay.
School of Rock. I want to talk about Joan Cusack because she's the best
love
part of this
Joan
movie.
Cusack.
Yeah,
she rules.
She's so good.
Interesting character.
Actually, yes. I have my notes here are like Joan Cusack !
Yeah.
Joan Cusack singing to Stevie Nicks is great, though I do think she's being a little overly schemy. Or Jack Black is being a little overly schemy in the movie. Joan Cusack being sad that no one is her friend is legitimately an emotional moment. Joan Cusack redemption arc is the best part of the movie. Joan Cusack MVP. Weird payoff for Joan Cusack.
Her just like, was it staring in the corner or something while the parents are mad at her?
Yeah.
It was really funny.
It's such a
Oh,
great.
and then your children are missing. Was
Yes.
a really great.
It's such a great delivery. It's such a funny character. It's one of those things. That's what I really like about this movie. Like, it's doing a type. It's doing the like, she's the stuck up headmaster, but she like has like a great interiority. Like she's free. She's acting her way because the parents are fucking nightmares.
Yeah,
and she
then,
genuinely wants the kids to be okay, but like she has to do it. The parents are the client.
And she's like self-aware and overtly says that like she didn't mean to be this way. She just got this job and she has to be this way because that is her job to do that.
And like her begging Jack Black to help her with parents' night is like so relatable.
Yeah.
Like just like having to do a function that makes you really nervous and wanting a friend there, even if they're not going to help you like physically, just to, like be there is like so relatable. And that for that character who's like, I thought was like so one note for so long.
I know. I thought
so
she was going to
sweet.
be a big nothing, but then she's like pretty fun.
Oh yeah. And it's not just like, she's not just fun. The stuff like her line deliveries are crazy funny. The payoffs are
Joan
so
Cusack
good.
is just a really good actress.
She's so good. I watched Addams Family Values not long ago. She's
Yeah, that's
so
right.
fucking good in that
Yeah.
movie as like the conniving villain or whatever. She's so great.
And then famously, she's in Pretty in Pink as the girl with the headgear. She has a really funny physical acting moment where she's trying to drink out of a water fountain with her tongue because the headgear is stopping her.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
Her payoff is very fun. It's weird. I really was pushing for her and Jack Black to end up together because it seemed like she was really like latching on to him a little more, and I was like, maybe that would be kind of the thing that pulls Jack Black away from like the scheme of it, which I actually do want to get to the Jack Black scheminess in a second. But it's kind of fun because at the end of the movie, like they just don't like. It's not even like a discussion. They just like because his emotional story is him and the kids.
Yeah.
And he goes off and does that. And then she's just like talking to this like hot band guy. And the hot band guy just her flirting with her. And I'm like, what a lovely payoff for
I know.
Joan Cusack.
I have to say, I really like the move of not making the main characters become romantically involved because
Yeah.
I kind of get sick of the fact that like the guy and the girl always have to end up together in a movie.
Yeah.
And also, like, that's not how life works. Like, people don't, like, sometimes you have, like, a thing with somebody very briefly, and then you just become friends, or you become nothing and never see them again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the plot of the entire Before trilogy by Richard Linklater. But you're right. More movies should have the central, like, emotional, like, story be about other relationships. Like, most of the people in your life you were not going to date.
Yeah. No, like, my favorite... yes. And you shouldn't. You should not date all of them.
If you are,
If you
something's
want
gone horribly
friends.
wrong, or you're Freddie Mercury.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zing.
Like, yeah. They should have been friends is, like, the moral of that movie. Yeah, no, like, my favorite thing in movies are, like, platonic friendships between men and women and stable relationships.
Yeah. Like the
Or platonic friendships between, whatever, two...
yeah.
Not just men, women, maybe like two gay people or any two people that could feasibly be attracted to each other, but then are just friends.
Right.
I like that.
You're basically describing Scrubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Turk and JD being like the friendship, and then Turk and Carla being just the stable relationship.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like I find stable relationships much more interesting than will they, won't they's because it's fun to see the dynamic, like the continual dynamics of a relationship and how they evolve and change and how two people can like learn to live as a unit, basically.
Yeah.
That's interesting and it's fun and it like rewarding.
Yeah, I mean,
Will they, won't they is always the fucking same thing.
yeah, I agree. I think a good will they, won't they works really well. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
and even if you know, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine's an example of one that like you kind of see coming from moment one. They're kind of doing it because of the show, but like they're both funny actors and it works really well.
But I find that show more fun when they're a couple.
Oh, I 100% agree because being in a stable relationship with someone is really great.
Yeah.
Hot take. Not so hot take. No, I totally agree. Like more movies, the central relationship should be something else. I think that's what is so great about this movie. That's kind of what Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't do.
Well, they kind of have it. They kind of almost have it with his relationship with Lucy Boynton, the real person's name
Mary.
escapes. Mary. Like, so it is very interesting in real life that they were married for a long time and then he came out and they got divorced and then they remained friends. That's like a very interesting relationship. And the movie, it seems like in real life they might have been better friends than they were in the movie.
Yeah,
I feel like they remain friends. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just talking about out of my ass. But like in the movie, she kind of just like leaves his
you're
life.
right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. She's just sort of like leaves the movie.
Yeah,
so you don't
she's
see
not
her
after
there.
they're not married anymore. She just kind of pops back in to have a boyfriend to give him the moment where he's like sad.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like she has mostly rejected him because they're not married anymore.
Right.
But when I was like skimming the Wikipedia, it sounded like they remained friends. I kind of would have found it more interesting if the story had been them remaining friends.
Yeah.
Even if that wasn't strictly true, that's something I would have found more interesting.
Right, and that's what School of Rock is doing. Like it's not just like him and Joan Cusack, who is so great, and it's not but him and the kids, but like him and Mike White, like who was like his roommate. Like
Yeah.
I like the scene where Mike White is like, hey, maybe we just weren't that good.
Yeah.
I had a fun time. We weren't that good. Like that was really
That
sweet.
is like, yeah, and that is like kind of a heartbreaking thing, especially as like struggling writers
Yeah.
who are like getting a little older. Like that shit always hits me really hard when it's like, fuck, maybe like that when you're trying to figure out the moment whether you're not going to make it or not.
Right. Remember when we watched Soul?
Oh man,
That was all about
it's
that
just
shit.
about that. That was tough.
That was dark.
That was rough stuff, man.
Yeah, it was me, you, and Jess, and Jess is saying they're like, I thought that was pretty good, and we're just like, I really like that movie too. That was great.
You're like, I wish I would fall in a manhole.
Yeah. I want beautiful shapes to tell me that everything's going to be okay. That there's someone in the universe who's making sure it all makes sense.
Jess is like, what a nice movie. And you and I are just staring at a manhole. Like, maybe this is how.
Is this the way out? Is this my way into the industry?
Maybe I could be a cat. Yeah, either I'll be a writer or a cat. Either way.
Jack Black. So the plot of School of Rock, I did not realize how fucking insane it was.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was, he's a school teacher who like starts a band with the kids. And I thought like it was just, I thought he was like an actual substitute. And I thought that he did that as sort of a thing for the kids. And then the band thing came later. And it was just a fight because the school was stuffy.
Right.
The actual plot is he's a rock star.
He's
Well,
a
rock
fraud.
star.
He's a fraud and a huckster.
Right. He's actually like a pretty bad person. And I think that makes the movie better.
It's really funny that he is fucking up these children's education.
Yes. It's so like, I like that the movie every once in a while like makes the point of like, don't worry, it's just been a few weeks. Like every once in a while the movie is the movie just like, oh,
Don't worry, they're going to learn math. Don't worry.
right. Like Joan Cusack will like walk up and be like, you've been great for the past 9 days, or like whatever, just to make sure that like you're in the audience. Because I did have that thought. Maybe it's a sign of how fucking old and boring I am that I was just like, I hope he's also teaching the math. I hope he's also teaching the mystery.
What if like the sequel to School of Rock is like 30 years later and none of them know math, so all their lives are just fucked?
Right. The fact that it is just like 3 weeks and he kind of has to force himself, he kind of has to teach them at some point is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he just like, yeah, he gets the job. He lies about who he is because his friend is a sub. And then like as soon as he gets there, he just like doesn't do anything. And then he doesn't start the band because it's fun. Oh no, he actually does. I take that back. He sees them playing music and he's like, oh, I'm so bored. I can play music with these kids.
Right.
And then he makes the connection of, oh, they'll help me win the battle of the bands.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah. It's just Battle of the Bands being a focal point of a movie is such a classic setup that I don't think ever has happened in real life. That's so funny.
No, I've never seen a sign for Battle of the Bands, but also, while LA is a music town, it's not a music town in the way that like all these other places are music towns.
Yeah, it's not really a music town.
Right. There's music here, but there's like the music industry is here, and there's clubs where famous musicians are.
Yeah, although bands will often skip through LA on like world tours and stuff.
That's true.
That's the thing that frustrates me about LA is that if like a band is doing a world tour, they'll have like a couple USA like dates.
Yeah.
And there's always New York and then a bunch of places in the middle of America, and like LA may or may not make it on.
I think LA is tough. I think it's just like a weird city. I think the venues are pretty expensive and hard to sell out.
Probably, yeah.
It's probably like the competition stuff.
I think the crowds are kind of shitty too.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, it's
Yes
been
and
weird.
no.
Yeah, I've seen some really great shows in LA, but also seen some weird shows.
I think the crowds are better for mid to low level bands
Yes.
where it weeds out the people who are just going because it's like somebody put on Instagram.
Right. The status shows, the expensive shows are going to be a lot of people just kind of sitting there bobbing their heads looking at their
Yeah,
phones.
and they got tickets because it's like the cool thing to do.
Right.
But if it's like a mid-level like standing room show,
Yeah.
it'll fucking rock because it just weeds out all like the
Oh, yeah.
shitheads.
Everything I saw at the Echoplex was fucking rad as shit.
Yeah, I mean that's like for me it's like El Rey, like Fonda.
I love the Fonda.
Fonda's great. Mayan's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Blasco's good. I mean, they're right next door.
Yeah. All those like standing room venues are my favorite.
Yeah. What the fuck are we talking about?
You're coming back to LA Music Venues, the podcast.
Which venue?
At least it's about music.
It is connected. I don't know. It's like that. that energy is what the movie does well. This is my insane pull back of us getting back on topic. Is the energy of us having fun talking about venues is what this movie does well.
Yeah,
I mean, music is fun.
It's the fun part. It's like really captures what's fun about making and enjoying music in a way that fucking Bohemian Rhapsody does not. I mean, although it does in the one scene where they record Bohemian Rhapsody.
We are talking in circles, which will be good for our next episode.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, foreshadowing for all you listening along at home. Which actually we'll be able to do because I think at this point,
all you browheads out there,
I love it. The browsers, the browsers.
Wow.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's insane that he lies his way into the job that much. I also think he comes in Jack Black in School of Rock. I know it's been like 20 minutes since we're on topic.
Yeah.
He comes in super hot.
Yeah.
Like
because that's what Jack Black does.
But I had to make a buy for the movie. Like this is a guy who needs the money. He's about to get thrown out on the street. He cons his way into doing this job, which he thinks is super easy, and then just fucks around and yells at the kid. Like he comes in, sits down, it's like, I'm not gonna teach you, just don't say anything, and then like kind of like tells the kids like he basically tells the kids I'm scamming you, and like or like comes in like Joan Cusack and will be like, oh, can I just leave early? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I'm like, my note is like, would he really come in this hot this fast?
Yeah, and
that's I guess the fun of the movie. Like that's what's so wacky about this character is that he's really that much of a like. I'm using degenerate in quotes because I can't think of a better word. Because I think he's not a bad guy. I think he's just
Well, Jack Black's energy is that he's scrambling. Like
right.
He's just scrambling so hard. It's like his thing.
It's so lovable. Like it works because it's him. Like if it was Will Ferrell, this movie would be like rated R, and he'd be like punching shit. And I say it as a man who was Will Ferrell.
Might want to see that movie.
Yeah, though that would be fun. I that would be great. Different movie though. That would be directed by Adam McKay, and it would be hilarious.
Yeah. Shit, we gotta find Will.
God damn it, we gotta find
Will?
Adam.
Adam, right?
They're both super. Actually, I don't know what Will Ferrell is doing. I mean, Adam McKay has that new movie coming out.
I don't know. It's like 10. He's probably like brushing his teeth or something.
Maybe. Do we know that he's on this coast? Maybe he's on the East Coast. Then he's definitely asleep.
Yeah, he's old.
Yeah,
ish.
I mean, we're old, so he's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was famous when we were young. He's old.
Yeah, he was famous when we were like young.
Yeah.
Yeah, the skit where he walks into work with like the American flag banana hammock.
Oh yeah,
that was 20 years ago.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, Jack Black, crazy, comes in super hot. The schemy stuff, the part where he's like, I'm gonna like get her drunk and have her sing Stevie Nicks so she'll agree to my like field trip. I don't know that I needed that stuff. It feels a little bit of the era, but I mean, it leads to Joan Cusack being hilarious.
It's funny because it's like a rom-com setup that doesn't turn into a rom-com.
That's probably why I was like shipping them at some point.
Yeah.
Even though like I was like confused. I was like, oh, that doesn't really feel what this movie wants to do.
You're waiting for the payoff of her feeling hurt that he tricked her.
Yes. And it doesn't really, well, you don't really see it. It's interesting. She doesn't seem all that bothered by it because I think by the time they get to the show, she's just freaking out about the kids being missing.
Yeah.
And the scene of him getting caught, which I actually think is done pretty well, is all about him and the kids.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so smart about the movie. It knows which relationships to like focus on and when. You know, unlike the other movie. I'm trying to do the highbrow lowbrow thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to bring it back to the other thing.
I mean, yeah, let's see. What makes what makes Bohemian Rhapsody highbrow? Because we don't think it's good.
Right, but our whole argument is quality does not equal brow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's not like, it is some kind of fancy filmmaking. Like the move at the end to recreate Live Aid is pretty highbrowy because that's like an interesting move.
I think the movie is doing active filmmaking. It's not just doing the assignment.
And also I feel like it's the biopics feel highbrow because they feel like they're trying to be important, because I feel like the message of biopics is like, look at this person, this important person that like we as a society like created and then like mistreated or loved or tossed away or whatever we did. And it's like, we all have to take a moment to appreciate this great person, which is like highbrow.
Right. I agree with that. And that sense of this is important, I think, is like super key to this. It's like, if the movie is saying this is important and culture is saying this is important, that's probably highbrow.
Yeah.
And if the movie is saying this is not important, or not in the same way, like, this is valuable is one thing. Like, I don't think School of Rock is trying to say like, this is a story that will go down in time.
Yeah.
Which is what Bohemian Rhapsody, what the characters say constantly throughout the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, because School Rock is like, it has important themes, but they're important. You have to recognize that they're important. It doesn't tell you that they're important.
Right. It's just a good story, and it lets the story do the work.
Yeah.
And in Bohemian Rhapsody is like, it I guess it assumes it's important. To borrow the Family Guy joke, it insists upon itself, which would have had a much better movie. Yeah, I mean, fucking decisions. Shocker. I think School of Rock's way better.
Yeah, it's a better movie for sure.
It is. I think it's a better movie. I think it's a better movie about rock stars. It's a better movie about rock music. I came in primed to really hate Bohemian Rhapsody. I ended up thinking it was kind of fun, but mostly very frustrating.
Yeah, I'd say like the first half of it is good, or maybe just watch the sequence of them making Bohemian Rhapsody
It's
on
so
YouTube.
great. Yeah.
And that's maybe the best way to. Okay, here's if you want the best Bohemian Rhapsody the film experience. You go to YouTube. You type in Bohemian Rhapsody recording studio. You watch that, and then you type in Live Aid, and you just watch the actual Live Aid performance, and then you go to bed.
I mean, that would be a good experience,
Yeah.
for sure. Although I do think it's kind of neat to watch the Rami Malek stuff.
Right, but if you're not already watching Bohemian Rhapsody, just watch the Live Aid performance.
I mean, you could just watch the Live Aid performance regardless.
Yeah,
I mean, as soon
watch
as
the Live Aid performance.
It's great. Queen is good. Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury is good. We
Yeah.
like him. Friends are good. Bands are cool.
And we're out. Don't drop the mic. They're expensive.
I guess other points I do want to make. Sing Street is great. You should
Okay.
see it. Lucy
Yeah.
Boynton's great in Sing Street. It was super jarring in School of Rock when Miranda Cosgrove used the word slut. I thought that was super, super weird. Like, that's a word that's like very verboten right now. And I can't imagine in 2003 it's in a PG-13 movie. She's like, the groupies are just sluts who sleep with the band members. I'm like, whoa.
I mean, yeah, it was really funny.
And I just want to point out, I think Rami Malek in the Live Aid scene is doing a lot of good physical acting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think people always think like, oh, acting is just like voice stuff, but it's like everything you're doing. You know,
No,
like,
I mean, I really appreciate physical acting.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, normally when I'm pointing out physical acting, it's like comedy acting, but that is a really good example of physical drama acting.
yeah, I agree. And it's like Shape of Water, Sally Hawkins, like wordless performance, and it's so good. And
Yeah.
you could do that.
Yeah.
And just want to give credit for that because I think that's an interesting idea. That is highbrow.
Yeah, I'd say non-narrative.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any Rex?
Game. We're gonna do a game.
Oh, we're gonna do the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Which game?
We're gonna do the one. I'll look up a list of the top movies about rock stars or something like that. I'll tell you what the list is,
Okay.
and you got to guess. Okay, so one of the shows we listen to does a top 5 thing. Another show I listen to does a top 4 thing. You want to do 3? See how we feel. Want to just do 5?
So the game is that you have a list. You're gonna tell me where the list comes from
and what the list is,
and what the list is, and how many things are on the list.
I'm going to say like, yeah. So this is a list of, it's like IndieWire top 10 movies about musicians.
And then I'm trying to I'm trying to name 5 things from the list.
Guess the top 5.
The top 5.
If it's like ranked.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, let's
All
do
right,
it.
let me clickety clack and pull it up.
That's fine.
This is November 2020, Top of the Pops, the 20 best rock and roll movies ever made from StudioBinder.com.
Okay.
It's a weird list. I'll
Okay.
tell you that.
All right. Is this a Spinal Tap on there?
This is Spinal Tap is number 1.
Fuck yes. Okay. Okay. Other movies about rock.
Do you want me to do the blank check thing? I go down, give you some hints?
Yeah, actually, that might help speed this up.
Okay.
But I am pretty proud of myself for
That's
getting number
amazing.
1. Yeah.
Okay. Number 2 is a movie we talked about on this podcast.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
It is not.
School Rock?
It's School of Rock.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I'm scrolling up discovering this as we go.
I should have guessed that.
Number 3 is it's a movie about like a rock band like touring. Good with the Oscars. A movie you really like.
Oh, is it Almost Famous?
It's Almost Famous.
Okay.
I'll give you less hints now. I'm trying to think what's the line here. Why don't you guess some? We're perfecting this. This is a weird list.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
I'm trying to think of more rock band movies.
Okay.
It's kind of tough.
this one it came out 2006.
Okay. Wait, they're all rock band movies. They're not just music movies. So it's not going to be like Once.
Yeah, specifically it's in movies about like rock bands.
Okay.
Rock and roll movies is their description.
Rock and roll movies.
This movie came out in 2006. It's a comedy.
It's a comedy in 2006. So I was 16. It's like sophomore year of high school.
It stars.
Yeah, name an actor.
I'll try and like give you like some vague. It's like a comedian specifically. There's a movie like with comedians in it. It based on a TV show, sort of based on like some serious TV specials.
Based on some TV specials. What?
It's the feature version of a thing that existed previously. Starring an actor we've talked about today.
Oh, is it is Wayne's World?
No, Wayne's World is on this list though.
Oh, okay.
I think it's number 10.
Yeah, that wouldn't be in 2006, but Wayne's World is... The funny thing is Wayne's World fulfills all of the things you were talking about, because we talked about Mike Myers today.
Yep.
It's based on an SNL sketch, which is a thing.
Yeah. Wayne's World's number 10.
Okay, is Wayne's World 2 on there?
I don't think so. It is... I'm trying to say without giving it away. You're going to be like, oh shit. It's very silly. It's very goofy. You know a lot of these songs, but they're not like all the songs like specific to like this thing.
Right. Okay.
It's not.
Is Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny?
It is Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. I gotta say, this is giving me like new appreciation for
Griffin,
for David, for like how do you give clues that don't give it away?
Yeah.
No appreciation for.
That's tough because I've never seen Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet it is. They're both great.
It's very silly. I don't know. I mean, the HBO things are. I don't know if they're HBO original, but I saw them in HBO. The TV show Tenacious D stuff.
I also didn't know that it was the TV show.
Yeah,
I just knew it as a band.
Yeah, I think it was like the band, and I think they just did like music video episodes based on some of the songs. I don't know, man. It was like fucking high school. I don't remember that shit. That was like 40 years ago.
Yeah. Oh man, the funny thing is like the high school aspect of it didn't help me at all because I did not see it in high school, so I didn't have like the sense memory of seeing it to help me.
It's fun. I gotta say, it's a good list. I'm glad I found this one. I feel like if I had done like Rotten Tomatoes, it would have been like Bohemian Rhapsody number 1.
Yeah.
Or like number 5 is a rock opera from the 70s.
Oh, is it Tommy?
It's Tommy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the other one would, I guess, Pinball Wizard.
Yeah.
Other movies here.
Quadrophenia? Is Quadrophenia on there?
Pink Floyd The Wall is 6.
Okay.
Great movie. Rocky Horror is 7.
Oh, yeah.
Wild Zero is 8. Have you heard of this movie?
No, what's that?
I don't know, but look at this image.
What? It's like a zombie thing? What band is it? Is it a band or is it like...
Wild Zero is about a Japanese rock band Guitar Wolf fighting off an army of alien-created zombies with their young blood Ace and his girlfriend Tobio.
Yo, we gotta watch this.
Shit. Immediately. We should have done this instead of School of Rock.
Shit, man.
I love School of Rock.
It kind of sounds like Leningrad Cowboys,
but
Japanese.
I love, man. That would be a really fun movie to talk about in this podcast that no one would be able to listen to.
What's the full title? Is Leningrad Cowboys Go America? Yeah.
If anyone wants to check out Aki Kaurismäki's Leningrad Cowboys Go America, it's great. It's very fun. It's about
wild.
It's about a really weird band from Finland who goes to America to tour, and they're just very silly.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Let's do 10 you already got. It was Wayne's World.
Okay.
Number 9 is a star vehicle for a musician.
It's a star vehicle for a musician. Oh, is it Purple Rain?
It is Purple Rain.
Okay.
This is super easy, man. Why am I always impressed when Griffin does this? We're talking about another podcast too that we're sort of ripping off right now.
Yeah.
Purple Rain. Have you ever seen Purple Rain?
I want to. I've heard it's good.
Yeah, and Prince is cool.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's a good Prince album.
Yeah, that's true.
Great Prince song.
Prince is great.
Prince is really good.
Is there a Prince biopic?
I hope not.
Somebody's probably trying to make it, and they shouldn't.
All good stuff. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story. Next time I'll get a worse list, and I'll prepare better hints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had fun.
Movies about rock stars are good.
Yeah.
Bands are cool. Friends are cool. Do you have any? What have you been watching? Any recs?
I just watched Battle Beyond the Stars, which is a Roger Corman Star Wars ripoff. That's fucking rad. It's insane. I was sending you clips of it on my phone.
Where can one watch Battle for the Stars?
I don't know how one gets it. Maybe there's DVDs.
Yeah, I will. I actually do want to see. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. I started Galaxina today, which is another like an even more blatant Star Wars ripoff. Like it even has like the same font for like the opening credits, and it has a crawl.
Yeah,
but then it's just fucking insane after that. It's like, yeah.
Interesting question to browse. That Star Wars ripoffs back then meant like really weird, shitty, heightened space operas, and like Star Wars ripoff now is just sort of like hero's journey, like straightforward story. Like it's if someone said Star Wars ripoff now about like current stuff, you'd think it was a kind of a straightforward blockbuster.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it seemed like that was like, oh, let's just do something completely wacky.
Well, the weird thing is that like, so I feel like Star Wars was kind of like a like response to like the old school of like sci-fi where it's like high adventure, very silly, like questionable production value, and a lot of like very like high sci-fi ideas kind of crammed into like a movie.
Yeah.
And then weirdly, like the ripoffs kind of go back to that. They like missed the point of what made Star Wars good, and they're like doing all this like goofy sci-fi bullshit that's like not really what Star Wars is about.
Right.
And that's like a thing that I find very fun about these ripoffs, is that they feel like 60s like sci-fi books where it's all about these like really big ideas that are like executed terribly.
Right.
And then like the new Star Wars ripoffs are like ripping off the thing that actually made Star Wars successful, which is
Right.
like the structure
and the storytelling.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. Yeah. Fun. Battle for the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
Battle for the Stars. I guess that's just Star Wars. What do we watch? Oh, Sing Street. I said I would recommend it. I'm going to recommend it again. I haven't rewatched it recently, but when I was watching School of Rock, I was remembered that Sing Street exists. And because of Bohemian Rhapsody, because Lucy Boynton, so I bought the Blu-ray. And that movie's really good, and it's really sweet. And it's
Yeah,
very
I gotta
special.
check it out.
I want people to see it. And that's been Movies About Rock Stars.
Yeah.
I had fun.
I have fun too.
Rate, review, and
So
subscribe. Yes,
Yeah. We do that thing.
every time. I know it sounds silly, but now I'm thinking like, now I get it. All those YouTubers, they really want you to rate and review and subscribe.
They
It's not just
desperately
a thing
need
they
you to
say.
do it.
It's not just like live long and prosper. Like,
Yeah.
you can say that and not want someone to
It's
live
a
long and
plead.
prosper. Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't say that if you don't want to live long and prosper. I think the Vulcans would have something to say about that.
Vulcans aren't real. I don't care. But yes.
Hot take from Josh.
I don't care about not real Vulcans.
You only care about real Vulcan.
If there was a real Vulcan, I would care about that very much.
Vulcan is a real place. If there's anybody there, you care about him.
If you like the podcast, give us good ratings, review us, subscribe to our podcast. We'll be back next week with some movies about some cool time shit. I think
right.
you'll enjoy it.
Bye forever.
Bye forever.